everybody. I'm going to want me to start. I'm just going to do some more introductory remarks and the purpose of the meeting, but just to kind of help things get kicked off. We have a camera there for the county, so the idea is we'll be able to post this at some point in the future following this roundtable. This is a roundtable forum hosted by me as your county executive. It's not a town hall forum. I do many town hall constituent forums every year in every town of Putnam County. This is designed so we can receive feedback and input from folks in the farming community, as well as those with subject matter expertise, and also bringing a degree of objectivity into Putnam County for me as a policymaker and the legislators who have attended to really receive input. I'm going to kind of elaborate a little bit further, but before I continue, I think it's best to just kind of go around the table. If everyone could please pass this microphone around for two reasons. One, it helps control who's speaking. Two, it helps pick up what you are saying on the camera. And when you do so, say who you are, your name, what organization you're affiliated with, and we'll keep going through. Everyone at the table should have an agenda. Is that accurate? Did we pass that up? No. Okay, so we will pass the microphone and the agenda as well. So thank you.
Good morning. My name is Barbara Rosa. I'm the Commissioner of Planning.
My name is Trish McLaughlin, and I am the Real Property Director for Putnam County, and I'm also on the Ag Board.
Hello, my name is David Zeiger. I'm Director of Community Outreach for State Senator Pete Harcum.
Good morning, my name is Kathleen Ryan. I'm the District Coordinator for our New York State Senator Rob Robinson.
Hi, good morning everyone. My name is Kira Brunner and I am the Chief of Staff for Assemblyman Max Leader.
Good morning everyone, I'm Jacqueline Nabi. I'm the Town Supervisor from the Town of Putnam Valley.
I'm Ruby Koch-Feinberg. I'm the Agriculture and Food Systems Coordinator at Cornell Cooperative Extension. And on the Ag Board.
Stephanie Huber, Executive Director for Cornell Cooperative Extension in Putnam County.
Christine Stassi, I'm a farmer on the Ag Board.
Fred Finger, farmer on the Ag Board.
Burton Roy, farmer, but previously on the Ag Board, but member of Farm Bureau.
Amanda Dykeman, farmer in Dutchess County and representing Dutchess, Putnam, Westchester Farm Bureau.
Dave Kavinga, Assistant Commissioner with the Westchester County Department of Planning. We staff the Ag and Farmland Protection Board in Westchester, as well as our Soil and Water Conservation District.
Jen Fimble, I'm the Ag Navigator for Dutchess County in the Planning and Development Program. I was a member of the Ag and Farmland Protection Board for 15 years in Dutchess County.
I'll apologize for this lengthy thing, but Greg Pulver, lifelong farmer, 12 years town supervisor in Pine Plains, 10 years legislator in Dutchess County, 6 years as chairman, member of the Ag and Farmland Protection Board, member of the Soil and Water Conservation District, and helped author our Farmland Protection Plan. Oh, and currently the Assistant County Executive, sorry.
Erin Crowley, Putnam County Legislator. I am also on the Physical Services Committee as well as Ag Board Representative from the Legislature.
So a couple other just housekeeping items. I think we ran out of space. I apologize. But Bill Goldman, who is a county legislator representing Putnam Valley, is here as well. I know some members of the town board are here. I mentioned that because we're in the town of Putnam Valley. And legislator Laura Russo just joined us as well. She's from the other side of the county, Patterson. But obviously we wanted Bill to be here and thank him for, hosting us, as well as obviously Supervisor Anabi and the amazing people at Lake Peekskill Civic Association. I've typically been here for candidate debates and forums and things of that nature. So I think it's important just to kind of lay out again, the intent and purpose behind this roundtable to solicit feedback. I know there's a lot of conversation and interest in obviously the agricultural district, but I really view this as an opportunity to learn and get additional information from stakeholders, both in and outside of Putnam County, but not solely for the ag district. This is about farming and the future of farming in a much broader sense. I don't believe you have to be in the ag district to be in farming. You don't have to have an exemption to be in farming. But obviously those are things that people are very interested in. And as a roundtable, I think it's an opportunity for us to really get that feedback directly. I could have done this, quite frankly, down the hall from my office in a conference room. I didn't do that because I believe in accountability and transparency. We wanted to do this in a venue where we could record it and other people could observe, because we know there's a lot of interest in this subject. When I do public hearings, we live stream. I started live streaming my public meetings before even the legislature did. This is not a public meeting, it's not a town hall. It really is for the people at this table. We're gonna have a hard stop with an hour at 12 o'clock. We're gonna have to push that already because it's 11:15, 11:20. We're gonna try to wrap this up by 12:20. If things go smoothly, I'll do my best to stick around a little bit longer. But with that, I think, again, I outlined the purpose. I think it's important that we acknowledge some of the great values that farming and agriculture bring to this county. The county has done a lot of good work with groups like Cornell that does a lot of work with the farming community already. I made sure that we brought in some of our top brass on the county government side. So our Commissioner Barbara Barossa is here for Department of Planning, Development and Transportation, as well as our Director for Real Property, Trish McLaughlin. I'm going to ask, in the order that we have in this agenda, to start with our county reps first for Putnam, and we're going to keep going down the line. So I'll ask Barbara, if you have anything to share, please tell us about your background and anything that you may be able to add and to the discussion.
Hello, everyone. Just to give a little background on the Ag Board. It was established in 2003 by resolution from the legislature. In 2004, an agricultural and farmland protection plan was adopted. 2007, the Ag District was further defined by resolution on how the board was supposed to interpret allowing parcels into the district, as well as the time frame for allowing consideration. So the Ag and Farmland Protection Board annually receives applications to be allowed into the district. There's a 1-month time frame where applications are received, April 1st through April 30th. And that's an annual period of application, which is rapidly approaching. With that, the board reviews the applications and makes a recommendation to the legislature. There is also every 8 years by state law, the entire district is, all of the parcels included in the district are reevaluated, whether they are still eligible. The last review was done in 2019, so the next review will be in 2027. As far as my role, I serve as an ex officio member on the Ag Board, along with Real Properties. Just to let everyone know, the Agriculture and Farmland Protection Board consists of 11 members, 4 of which shall be active farmers. At least 1 member of such board shall represent agribusiness, and 1 member shall represent an organization dedicated to agricultural land preservation. The 6 board members of the board shall reside within the county which the respective board serves. The members of the board shall also include a chairperson of the County Soil and Water Conservation District Board of Directors, or an employee of the County Soil and Water Conservation District designated by the chairperson, a member of the county legislative body, the county cooperative extension agent, county planning director, and the county director of real property tax services. So,
Do you mind sharing, I know you shared a few tidbits of information with me earlier to do, I'm gonna ask Chris to pull up the ag district map about the amount of acres that are currently in the ag district and parcels.
so
This is-
currently,
I'm sorry, I didn't share this too, and I'm sorry to speak out of turn here. One of the things too, there was an interest in the Keep Putnam Farming website, so that was temporarily taken down when we were updating. I think it was down for maybe 6 days, Chris, inadvertently. That has been up for well over a week at this point. It's been updated, but the ag district map is also there as well. So I want you to get a lot of information, but the map for those parcels that are currently in the ag district. So please continue.
so currently, the ag map plan is from 2019. That is the most up-to-date map since that time. No parcels have been included in the district. Currently, we have 72 farms, 5,113 total acres. And just to bring this into perspective, in 2004, when the board was first created in the plan, they acknowledged that there were 71 farms, 4,551 acres that were included in the ag district.
So, thank you. So it's been stable or slight growth since the inception. Okay. I also just want to recognize, I see legislator Nancy Montgomery is here as well. So thank you, Nancy, for being here. And Trish McLaughlin, who's our director for real property. I mean, really, that's when we at the state, and I know this from my previous time in the state assembly, we just went through this similar exemption for volunteers in fire and EMS. The state often passes what's referred to as enabling legislation for tax exemptions. So they do it whether it's for the ag district, for fire and EMS, for veterans, and then it is on the local jurisdiction to opt into those tax exemptions. So just a couple of years ago, we opted into a 10% tax exemption for volunteers in fire and EMS. We're looking to actually modify that slightly. But Trish, we do have, separately from the district, but there is an ag district exemption as well that the county has opted into years ago that still exists, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. So we'll go through, that was just a real preview of some of our comments from Barbara. And you said the deadline already, sorry. At this, do you want to add? Sorry, Chris, go ahead, please.
I passed around an ag exemption. They call it, whoever creates these things, and it's all over, they call it an agricultural assessment, but it's basically your ag exemption. It's a chart, and up in the upper left-hand corner will be where you start. And then it'll start asking you some questions. Do you have this? Do you have that? If no, continue. If yes, you go down another. So it's kind of involved, but it's a nice flow chart of kind of get you where you want to go and helping you understand if you qualify for the ag exemption, which could be different from being in the, well, actually it's quite different from being in the ag district itself. So you may be in the ag district but not have the exemption or vice versa. So this chart will help you guide your way. All the assessors use this in determining, and the assessors are the ones that actually speak with you, go over your application with you, and make those decisions. My office does not. So you're aware of that.
Thank you. And one of the things I'm going to ask maybe you can preempt it when I ask our friends from Dutchess and Westchester share a few words, is the number of the members on your ag board. Is there any variance? Is it different? Is it set up? Is it the same? Period for applications, is it the same? Is it vary? Like that to me would be helpful information. But in addition to the people that are here from Putnam County government, I had the privilege of having a nice hour-plus long conversation with a friend and someone I lean on for advice once in a while, and that is former county executive Bob Bondi, who, for those of you who don't know Bob, served as county executive in Putnam for 20 years. He was a county legislator before that, was I think an economic professor, but he actually is a farmer by trade. That is his profession, his vocation, and he owns and operates a farm up in Steuben County. He also happens to be the county executive who signed that enabling resolution from the county back in 2003. And then he signed the other criteria in 2007. So I'm still waiting back to hear from him. He gave me a lot of anecdotes. He told me that at the time it was hugely popular, didn't really hear anything negative. But he definitely has a lot of experience, both personally, but also from having been in county government during that period. So I think folks just deserve to know that he's someone that we've done a lot of engagement with as well. On that note, I think it's good we have a little bit of a line item here to run a show here to go through on our agenda. I want to ask our friends from Dutchess County if they'd be happy to share a little words about their experience, anything that you're working on. Thank you. We'll pass this in.
Thank you. Before I hand it over to the person that knows most about this, I will say that we're a little different in Dutchess County. We acknowledge that. We have about 200,000 acres in our ag district. We have consolidated, back in the day, we had 25 different ag districts in Dutchess County that got consolidated to 4, and then my last term in the legislature, we narrowed it down to just one large ag district. So we went from ag districts a lot. There's reasoning behind it, but we've done that. As far as the ag, make up the Ag and Farmland Protection Board, it's the same. It's ag and markets pretty much dictates how that board gets set up. We have been very proactive in Dutchess County regarding agriculture. We are one of the few counties that have a right to farm law, and I was proud, along with Marcus Molinaro, I was chair of the legislature to pass that as a lifelong farmer. And I'm just going to touch on it briefly. We have a right to farm dispute resolution committee. So if both parties, the towns usually is one party, and then the farmer being the other party, want to get together, we have a mediation board that will hopefully come to terms and make sure that both sides are represented. But before you go to court, to try to make that dispute go away. We do have a real estate disclosure notice, basically saying that if you're selling as a realtor, if you're selling a property next to a farm, that you tell the homeowner or the property owner that's buying it that there's a farm nearby, and yes, they're noisy, they can be smelly, and they work odd hours. And then the agricultural data statement, which is something that the Ag Navigator works with, is getting our own data on what is being farmed in Dutchess County, how it's being farmed, and it gives the legislature a lot of information for that. But perhaps the greatest thing we did when we passed the Ag and Farmland Protection Plan, which I helped author in 2015, which was a long time, was saying that Ag and Farmland Protection Plan used to just sit on a shelf in soil and water or wherever, and nobody looked at it. Marcus and I decided we'd create the Ag Navigator position. It was supposed to be shared amongst several counties, but we are now the only one that has it right in our area. And I think that's what, Jen's job has made our job a lot easier, because she handles a lot of those questions that doesn't have to come to the legislature or the Soil and Water Conservation District, which I was, or the Ag and Farmland Protection Board, which I was. So we are very fortunate to have that, and I'm going to let Jen kind of take it from here. But as I said, I've been on every side of this issue for a long time, including applying for our own ag district protections when I was a farmer, as well as dealing with it as the chairman of several boards. It's interesting when you're the chairman of the Ag and Farmland Protection Board and you're also the chairman of the legislature, setting two different hats apart, because we do separate issues regarding the ag district applications. So I don't get any more confused. I'll let Jen pick it up.
So before I was just the Ag Navigator, I was a Cornell Cooperative Extension ag educator for 38 years. I retired in June, but during the last 15 years, I was also, part of my job was the ag navigator. So it was through an RFP originally, through the county, because of the update to the ag plan, and then it became part of the Cornell Cooperative Extension part. When I decided to retire, the county asked me to come back to the county level as the ag navigator part-time, and now they're in the process now of hiring a full-time ag navigator, and I will stay on to help mentor them, so to give you some back history. So, for those who don't know, the Ag District Law was created in 1971, and the purpose of the ag law was not only to protect, but it's the availability of farmland. So it's not just protecting the existing farms, but it's also making available farmland across the state. All right, I think there's some misconceptions about that. I'm going to say that it is not, we're really trying very hard not to call it an ag exemption, because constituents get really upset with that. How come they're exempt from taxes? They're not exempt. They're not. They get a discount based on the type of soil that they have. So it's very, very simple. It's, the process is not simple, but the idea is very simple. It's a discount. And what's important about being in the ag district and receiving ag value assessment, the two of those things coupled together is what gives the farm, or the farmer, not necessarily the benefit, but the possibility of the benefit for the right to farm laws in New York State. So if there was a drought and the farmer's pulling water from their stream to do some watering of their vegetables, that is a piece that can protect them. All right, and where the homeowner can't necessarily run their tap or run their hoses out there. All right, so those are the kinds of things that the Ag District Law does help with. So the right to farm law protections, and that's why it's so critical. If we don't keep up with our farming community, what happens, right? I know Ruby's doing great work with local farms from Westchester, Putnam, and Dutchess and beyond to get food to those who can't afford it. Where are we going to get that food? That's the bottom line. Horse farms are a big part. It's a big part of agriculture, and I think that people have to understand. Everybody thinks, well, big farms. It isn't always about big farms. There are a lot of small farms that do a lot of good that buy from big farms. So their hay, their crops, their oats, anything like that, that's where they're buying it from. They're not necessarily growing it themselves. So it's a mutual benefit to both. And then the last thing I want to just say is that towns really need to understand why it's so important to have a balance of residential, commercial, and agricultural properties. The average homeowner in a town in Dutchess, so I'm going to use a very small town of Armenia, the typical homeowner uses in services $1.35 for every dollar that they spend on taxes. So they're using more than they're paying for. So who's picking up the balance? It's farms and commercial properties. And that's why you need the balance. Because otherwise, the homeowner's taxes are going to go sky high, higher than they already are. So that's, I think, an important piece. There was a study done by the American Farmland Trust. They do have it. It's an old one, but it does point out those kinds of features, why it's so. And when I go to a town board, I explain that to them. Their jaws all drop. Oh, I didn't realize that. So a farm doesn't use the kind of services that a homeowner does.
And I know we'll ask probably more during the discussion, but your application period in Dutchess County, is it the same?
No, it's not. Every county determines their own. So ours is from April 15 to May 14. So ours is coming up. We've got an online application now, which is fantastic. It helps with the duplication thing. So there's someone buys a property. So our OCIS has been fantastic about getting this up and going. We get a lot of duplications. Someone puts in, and they look and we look at it, or Soil and Water looks at the process, right? They look at it first from a soils perspective. They put it on a worksheet for the Ag and Farmland Protection Board to look at. They make the recommendation to the county legislature, who makes the recommendation to the state commissioner. That's the process everybody goes through. So that's
awesome. So I didn't recognize the individual, but Crystal Rosano is the person working that laptop over there. He's our communications director. He works under our executive office, but he supports every department in county government with communications. He also has the good fortune of previously working in the Molinaro administration in Dutchess County. So he was smart enough to preload the Dutchess County website. So that's why I asked him, like,
Jen, is your application already online, or is that?
It's not live.
Oh, it's not live.
It's
Oh,
not
okay.
live yet. No, I
It's not
actually had
live.
somebody called me yesterday, wanted to know how come they couldn't get into it yet. It just shows me the viewer. It's because it's not live yet. Won't be live until April 15th.
And one other question, it might be the ag and markets law, but the appointments of the ag board, are they all done by recommendation and the legislature appoints, or do you have anything that, okay?
You have to get a letter from the Putnam County legislature. So I am no longer on the board as a voting member. I'm actually going to be, the ag navigator position will be the secretary to the board.
Question?
Yeah.
So do you have anyone that assists the farmers with the application? Would that be you?
So no, so it's not me. My position is not educational or that technical. So the technical expertise goes to soil and water. So their staff will help if someone has a simple question, but the application is really very simple. It's a very, very simple one. This will automatically plug in their parcel number. They have the address, it'll plug in the entire parcel number. It's a really great tool this time around. So no, my role is really for working with those issues between municipalities and with farmers, working with local, state, and federal officials as well. So it's been an interesting.
Did your, sorry to interrupt, the soil and water, do they work with your IT department in-house to develop that, or do
So
they
we all
use somebody else?
work really well together. So
Okay.
the planning department was in charge of it. That's Owen Rafter. So he's the commissioner of planning. We came up with like, hey, is it possible? Because we did have an online one last year, but it really didn't work like we wanted it to. We did it actually for the 8-year review as well, which was immense. And so he asked us some questions. We had a couple of meetings. So Brian Swarlick, myself, and Owen, he brought it to OCIS. They put out a rough draft of it. We looked at it, made some comments, and it's just about ready to go live. It'll go live on the 15th. So we all work really well together.
Well, thank you, Jen. And Putnam County, once upon a time, many, many moons ago, was part of Dutchess County. So we always feel like we're cousins or siblings or whatever.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Jen. And Dave, right?
Yes.
From Westchester County?
Thank you. Yeah, Dave Kavinga from Westchester County. A lot of what I'm going to say is going to sound repetitive because we've gone through a lot of the same issues as well. We created the Ag Board in 1999, 2000, 2001. We actually started our first agricultural district, so that started the 8-year review period. It was originally administered as a county-wide district, and we were receiving, we had applications. We had farms in Yorktown and Yonkers, so it was a very dispersed and varied district. During the first recertification period, which was 2009, around 2007, 2008, we started to have some issues in our more suburban or urban areas, White Plains in particular, where we had some nursery operations that they were doing rock crushing and mulching, so they had these big tub grinders, and they were in the middle of a residential neighborhood. The result of that was that the district, during its first recertification, was constricted to the northeastern part of the county, where most of the agriculture did exist, acreage-wise anyway. So we wound up with a significant modification to the district. And our district, like yours, is parcel-based. It's not these big blocks of the county that are that are dedicated as farmland. So we have the same evaluation criteria, or we developed at the same time evaluation criteria to make sure that commercial farms that were appealing to enter into the district and add land to the district were commercial in nature, of significant size and scale, to be considered commercial in nature, and we're also following best management practices, et cetera, et cetera. We have a large portion of the county, particularly where all the agriculture is also located in the East Hudson watershed, so we were very concerned about protecting water quality. And that's one of the reasons that we created these agricultural protection programs as well, that the agriculture, through the planning efforts that we did with the Croton Plan, was determined to be a preferred land use at well-managed agriculture. Was determined to be a preferred land use to protect water quality. So a lot of our agricultural programs were originally started as water quality protection or for water quality protection purpose. So we also have an agricultural board constituted the same as yours. We have had a difficulty maintaining members, particularly farm members. The ex officio members are all there because they're there. But the farm members, you know, we've just had, it has been difficult. So we currently have 2 vacancies. We're actually looking, and we've had conversations with Ag and Markets about this, looking to get somebody from the Land Trust or from the Grange or other agriculturally oriented urban agriculture. We'd love to have somebody on our board that has that voice as well. Because it's not only administering the Ag District, but also advising the County Board of Legislators on issues concerning agriculture. So we are currently going through, we're recertifying our district again this year. We are looking to expand it and to include an additional 4 towns on the periphery of the current boundaries of the district to become then eligible communities to include additional land at some point, because we have gotten over the years interest from farm owners within those communities to re-enter the district. So we'd like to make that eligible, and now we feel that we have a process in place now where we can adequately evaluate whether farms are eligible and the farms that we want to see included in the district. So hopefully, barring no unforeseen instances, that should probably happen in the next couple of months. We'll be submitting legislation next week to the Board of Legislators, and hopefully by July, which is our certification date, we'll have that certified by the state. So then we'll be on our way again. We're also in the process of updating our county agriculture and farmland protection plan. Ours was much older than yours. We did it in 2004. Primarily to become eligible for the Farmland Protection Implementation Grant Program from New York State Ag and Markets, and we were very fortunate to receive a couple of grants back then in the mid-2000s and again in 2010 to get some funding to purchase the development rights over a couple of farms in the county. And we're very happy about that. We're trying to look at doing that again where it may be appropriate. So we're going to be updating that ag plan again. And again, broadening it to cover urban agricultural issues. We have a lot of issues that we went food system issues, food scarcity, food sovereignty, and trying to address all of those issues, and just see how Westchester can better help make the whole regional food system more resilient. So we're excited about that. We're excited about our farms. Our farms, as well as a lot of the counties down here, is predominantly made up from the equine industry. So we have a lot of horse farms. Certainly, they make a lot of money too for the county. It's a significant economic activity in the county. A lot of spinoff and a lot of dollars that come in through equine. Not only in the services that they require, but also in the agritourism and just the region that it serves and the business, the clientele that they serve. So we appreciate all aspects of our agricultural industry, and we look to promote them to the extent that we can through that. Recognizing, however, that we are a very suburban county, and these issues do arise. So we have a regional ag navigator at Pace University. They don't necessarily, they have a slightly different role in that they primarily work, it's through the food and beverage clinic, so they primarily help people navigate the laws of how to get certain licenses and certification. We are working more closely with them through this ag plan update as well, so we'll be hopefully incorporating them into more of our day-to-day business operations.
Well, there seems to be a common theme, at least with some of our neighboring counties, about the desire to update the farming plan, which I think would be helpful for Putnam as well. Just a question, obviously Westchester is significantly larger. You got cities, 1 million people versus less than 100,000 people, but you narrowed that area concentrated to northern Westchester, so northeastern Westchester. Do you know how many acres that is? At
its height, we had almost 13,000 acres of land. Now this is tax lot size. This is an active farmed land. We've always had an issue trying to get that data, which is one of the things we're doing. We actually have an online survey now as part of the district recertification where we're reaching out to farmers and we used to, through our Soil and Water Conservation District, we used to do a farm survey every 5 years, but that ended 20, 30 years ago, just due to staff resources. So we're trying to bring that back now using technology and trying to communicate more often with our farm community to get better idea, particularly of the actively farmed land. We're also going to be doing some spatial analysis and image analysis using some GIS data so that we can start mapping out, the edges of pastures and actively farmed areas from the air, and then, trying to get a better handle on that. But that's that's probably our biggest concern right now with respect to data and understanding our agricultural district is where is that? Where is the actively farmed land? And then looking at potential farmland as well.
Well, yeah, part of it, I'm just curious because I'm sort of a small county, but if you're constraining it, I'm just wondering how we compare. I mean, when I full disclosure, when I was in the assembly, I represented Northern Westchester, so I frequented Stewart's Farm, Wilkins Farm, all those other farms. Loved it. It's great. Used to get my Christmas tree over at Stewart's. Now I go to Coburn over in Garrison. So sorry, kids, I'm not going to live in Northern Westchester anymore now. I'm county executive. But I'm just curious if we can ever get those numbers. That'd be helpful. But thank you, Dave. And the farm plan definitely seems like it could be a common theme. Did you have anything to add?
I could talk all day about agriculture. No, come to our ag forum. We're looking at doing something like that in the next 6 to 8 months. So,
there's going to be a discussion later, hopefully. But do you guys do like a farm tour or anything like that?
We do. We work closely with our Office of Tourism. We have a farm trail through the state that we got probably about almost 10 years ago now, and we do have some farm tours. Our tourism office also actively promotes farm to table, restaurants, connecting restaurants with farmers, et cetera. Of course, we have stone barns and things like that. So we're very fortunate to have those types of operations as well, which does a lot of promotion of the agricultural industry.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dave. Next on our agenda, I'm going to turn over to our friends from the New York State Farm Bureau. So Ruby, that's Irvin and Amanda. Sorry, go ahead. Thank you.
So I'm Amanda Dykeman. I am the Secretary of Dutchess Putnam Westchester Farm Bureau. We're the local chapter to the State Farm Bureau. Personally speaking, I operate the 4th generation vegetable farm located in Pauling. My husband and I are now operating the very diversified farm, which would include agritourism through pick your own pumpkins and pick your own apples. We also have a farm stand with fresh vegetables, ranging from sweet corn to eggplants and potatoes. And on top of that, most recently during our 8-year review, I had caught that the parcel that we live on, which is just we share the southern border with our farm, was not in the ag district. And so knowing that I have a pond in my backyard that we pull water out of to irrigate the fields, being in the ag district is what allows me to do that because it's my personal residence, not part of my parcel that is the farm. I also have a field in my backyard that the farm uses. So that's one of the benefits of the ag district, of being in the ag district that we've seen. On another level, our agritourism operation, I take fields that had previously maybe had corn in them, I turn them into a parking lot, and I put up temporary 30 by 50 tents and 30 by 20 tents for a pick your own pumpkin patch. So that requires, I need to have parking available for people, which again, I do communicate with our fire commissioner to make sure that we're following all their laws and, and our protocols are aligning with what they would like to see in our operation. I don't get a permit. I don't get a permit for my parking. I don't get a permit for my event. I don't get a permit to put my tent up. It is part of my agricultural practice on the farm. It's it's a sound part of the practice. They call it SAP, Sound Agricultural Practices. I raise pumpkins. I raise apples. I need to sell them. And as long as it's part of my bona fide operation and I'm staying within reasonable guidelines, I'm allowed to do this because I'm in the ag district. And again, as everybody knows, I'm sure, we've been doing that since 1974 with the pick your own pumpkins and hay rides and everything. So I would say the ag district is one of the reasons why we are still able to do things like that without, we get new neighbors, everybody does. So, again, yes, spraying, you might have to be up 10, 11 o'clock at night still working, or up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and the tractor's going down the road, and it's just a very common thing. So that's probably one of the largest benefits. And with our agritourism operation, yes, we are having people come from all over, so they're stopping at your gas stations, they're stopping at your restaurants. So as much as we can do to, not having to pull that permit, and spend that money, because again, margins are really tight on the farm, so every penny counts. And I would say that's probably one of the biggest things that being in an ag district has been able to do. But I am not exempt from laws. I need to pull a permit if I want to put a barn up. There are things that I do have to do, but there is an opportunity to have a little flexibility so that my agricultural operation isn't fully disrupted or halted, so that my commodity can get sold since it has a shelf life.
Just before we go to Urban, I know, Greg, you mentioned there was like a disclosure notice in Dutchess County. Is that a county ordinance, county
Yes,
law?
so that's part of our, that was part of the Ag Land Protection Plan implementation, if that makes sense. So yeah, so we make sure, there's a misconception, I think, out there that the Ag District gives you carte blanche to do whatever you want as a farmer, and that's just simply not true. You still have to follow zoning, you still have to follow certain things, but what it does allow you to is exactly that. Do certain things on a temporary basis or a seasonal basis that you don't need to go to planning or zoning to get it done. The problem is when it grows from that to then all of a sudden there's a 40 by 60 building going up, and now thousands of people come into your farm, and we have that instance and I'm not going to tell you who it is, but we had that instance in Dutchess County where it has gone from mostly agriculture to now mostly tourism.
Yes,
I can't define that for you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but that's where, like on my farm, when we're doing it, we aren't bringing in outside people to do it. We don't have caterers coming in, so we are doing it's part of our operation.
You mentioned about neighbors moving in,
Yeah.
so that's why I was just curious. It
Yes,
sounded like a personal experience with some neighbors, and I'm wondering if that disclosure notice, if that improved things. I tend to think that if I moved and bought a house next to a farm, I would know. But kind of like people that live next to an airport or a loud train station. But I guess you could buy it online.
it is, but we have now made sure that it happens. I mean, a lot of these state laws get kind of overlooked, So there is a disclosure out there, but we make sure that it happens. And I think you're exactly right. I mean, a lot of people know. I mean, I can remember as a kid, my father, we had an agricultural business, and the guy that rented the airport made hay in between the runways, and there was no houses around it, and it was just hayfield after hayfield, and then houses got done, and all of a sudden the airport became a problem. So we're trying to make sure that doesn't happen. My neighbors know that in the end of October, November, the grain dryer goes on. Sounds like an airplane going off, but it's going off for 24 hours straight, sometimes for days on end. And we make accommodations for them and try to turn the dryer to a certain degree so my house hears it rather than their house hears it. And those are the things that we try, or the Ag Navigator tries to mitigate.
And the same thing, even from a New York Farm Bureau level, knowing with an equestrian facility. I mean, there's so many different things. You're going to need to get a hay truck in there, and so they manure. They have a manure removal. That there's so many different things that are related to it. And
I lived here my whole life, but I could see someone from New York City coming up here, like, "Ooh, I live next to a farm. This is gorgeous. This is beautiful." And then all of a sudden they move in, and they go, "What's that smell?"
Yes.
So that's part of that's a due diligence, but maybe there's a little bit of an educational component. I don't know if that's added information that you're sharing.
And also knowing that there's so many different faces to agriculture. I have a farm stand, or that I'm agritourism, and if agriculture is changing, and in order to keep it, we have to accept the change that it needs to make in order to survive. Because that's the only way that a farm's, able to do this, especially more so now, in the last, 10 years or so, and more people are going to a farm for an experience. Everybody wants an experience with friends and family.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you keep going.
I made kind of pumpkin at Dykeman's too with my family, but don't tell my friends that are from Tilly.
So I've been farming for a while. I do try to make all my neighbors happy. So usually, getting complaints, but not everybody's a good neighbor. But that's not really something that is just farming. You have a lot more problems with residents hating their neighbors than farmers. I understand where the neighborly situation gets involved, and I realize that something needs to be accounted for, but that's what the Ag Board does. And so they do look, when there's an application and they see it's in the middle of a residential area, they question whether it's supposed to be there. It's not like they just, carte blanche say, yeah, let every farm in. They review, and that's the job of the board. Sometimes it's a farm that's been there for years, and the houses have encroached upon the farm, and who's correct? The new people coming in or the farmer? I don't think there is an answer. It really comes down to being the best neighbor that you can be. For the purpose of the district, I know Southeast is my town, and we've had many issues over the years, from building permits to other things, but I'll give my personal experience with the Ag District. I had built a horse arena in 2008, and we applied for a permit from the town, and the town declined us getting the permit because we designed the indoor to be 110 feet away from the wetland buffer zone. And, from the wetlands, which would have created they had a 133 to 200 foot wetland buffer zone, depending on your slope. That basically nullified, so my horse business, what everybody left in Florida in the wintertime. And so the indoor riding ring is so that people can stay all year long, which creates more business for the county. And so when we designed it, it was in a place that was set down so that you wouldn't see it and look like a gigantic building near the road. The town did not give us a permit, and we then applied for review from the state. The state came down and said the difference between the 100 feet and the 133 feet is not an adequate reason to restrict the building permit from us. We ended up getting the permit, although the town waited to the last day to basically give it to us. The funny thing out of all of it, and I didn't even know this, 2 years ago the town randomly just decided, hey, we're going to move the buffer zone down to 100 feet. So essentially they would have tried, putting me out of business over a law that they just magically changed 33 feet, 10 years later because a different group of people come in and want to streamline the wetlands process. But that is not, there was no valid reasoning for the difference between the 110 versus the 133. It was just a homeland rule issue and who gets to make the rules. But my point in this is none of the towns have an ag code. Not a single one except maybe Phillipstown. I believe they refer to the Ag District, but nobody has an actual ag zoning code. So I saw in the paper recently that somebody mentioned that, the farm shouldn't be allowed into the district because they are a commercial entity in a residential zoning area. They're not a commercial entity and they're not a residential entity. They're a agricultural zoning entity, and no town has agricultural zoning. One thing I tried doing for about 20 years on the Ag Board was creating guidelines for our county, because we realize our county is not like every other county that has 200,000 acres. We have, smaller parcels and have slightly different rules, and newer going into the watershed being one of them. We want to make sure that that's picked up and that we don't have, runoff. But these rules are specific to our area, but none of the towns have come out and said, let's create an ag zoning plan. We tried to do it, and we were shot down by the ledge representative on the board. And it's not something that I feel is, we tried outreach to the towns. We tried to get the towns on board and say, hey, this is the ag district. We're not the enemy. It's a review process. But what we want more than anything is to understand that farms have different zoning needs than a house.
So Urban, I'm just gonna ask, I wanna go to the members who are here that are part of the Ag Board too, but I know you're here really on behalf of the Farm Bureau, and we're kind of getting a little bit off from that point, so, I mean, honestly, no one else here knows this. I met with you maybe a few months ago, and I recognized you because in my previous role in the Assembly, you came up with the Farm Bureau, and it was expressing concerns about a law that I think the governor and the previous governor vetoed, thankfully sometimes about Class C streams and DEC. But on the Farm Bureau side, trying to look at the importance of ag districts. And then obviously there's farms, like as far, and just to clarify things, because I think people like read something, no one who is in the ag district has been removed from the ag district in the last, at least that's as I've been.
Well, there's
This
no,
point I did.
there's no straight removal. It's
So that is, yeah, I understand it, but I some folks think like, oh, like that hasn't happened. But as far as your experience from the Farm Bureau bringing it into Putnam County, the importance of ag districts, one thing, so does the Farm Bureau have, like, one question I asked our friends in Dutchess and Westchester about the timeline for application periods. I'm very much like, this is for me to digest and to help potentially make updates or pitch updates, because I can't do this on my own. I can ask the legislature. Some of them may support an initiative or a modification or update. Some of them may not. I've asked things before they do it. I've asked things before they don't. And then they vote. I get to sign or veto. But as we consider some of these things like the timeline, as a member of the Farm Bureau, do you know other examples, some other counties where their timeline period is different?
So
Or they have a different online website, or?
Very similar to all the other counties.
Yeah.
It's a very standard process.
So the district process on a month date, I mean, originally we were in November. We changed that a few years ago to April.
Yeah, and other counties are very similar. I mean, it's just exactly, they might alter a little bit.
Yeah,
It's like April 15th, May 15th. I wasn't sure if there was.
We originally had it in November, and nobody was farming in November. It was just when the farmers were able to go to the farms easier. We switched that to April so that we could actually see stuff being grown on farms.
That was kind of like a statewide, everyone was doing that? Okay.
It also depends, again, obviously, yes, if you need to be able to see that it's a bona fide operation, then, you know, your climate.
Going through the season.
Yeah, it would be one of the factors.
Yeah, I can tell you from Westchester's standpoint, the state has a time frame that they'd like everybody to follow for these annual inclusions. We never meet it. We never meet it because we take a lot of time evaluating the applications. You know, I think that their time frame has like a 30-day period for the Ag Board to do its review. We have one meeting a month, our Ag Board, and you know, we receive applications one month. We schedule site visits for the next month, and then maybe, you know, 4 or 6 weeks later, we will have a report to give to the board of legislators. But I think we think that we're doing our due diligence, and we are making sure that the recommendations that we're making are sound for our county, which has a lot, you know, suburban counties have more issues with respect to agriculture than most of the rest of the state. So we're trying to make it work for us.
And for West, you mentioned that you have 2 vacancies as well, and Putnam does. Yeah. Is that something the Farm Bureau sees? Is like generally across the state? Or is that just regionally? Is that it's very difficult to get people?
Oh, not in upstate New York, where there's a lot more percentage-wise. But yeah, we've always had a problem on the Ag Board getting people.
Yes, and even like lower once you get down past a certain part of New York State, I would say. In the upstate, it's a completely different type of agriculture.
But the requirements for membership are the same universally, regardless of the.
Yes.
That's interesting. Like New York City has the same setup
as
like, you know, Columbia County.
Yeah.
So there are no ag districts in cities?
Okay, well that makes sense.
Yeah. So there aren't in some villages as well. There's just no ag districts.
Okay, because they have to opt into, okay, I guess that makes sense.
There's no soils.
Westchester closest
I
route.
mean, there are.
Yes.
Technically, all of Putnam County is part of ag districts, so we
Right.
have 3 villages.
Well, we're the same, we have
We don't have
Lincoln
cities.
and we have Poughkeepsie as well, but yeah, but within that city, we are not, there's no ag district.
They never got it, okay.
And one of the things that's most on everyone's radar, especially with Farm Bureau and when we're, working with the legislators, is just to have everyone understand parcels are smaller, farms are becoming smaller. I have a 344-acre farm, and that's on the larger side. But you get up towards Millerton, farms are bigger than mine. And then, you take of what the average size farm might be in Putnam County or Westchester, we're all going to be different. So even to know, like, going forward, that meeting certain requirements, you might not be able to meet all of them, because the problem is, again, you're a smaller farm. You're gonna have more urban farming. You're going to have more climate controlled farming, greenhouses, basically. So there's so many different things that are going to start changing with agriculture, and it's something that we all kind of have to move with. Farmers are very good at pivoting and going with whatever needs to be done, but that means we're all gonna have to recognize that too, I would say.
Well, I get that. I mean, that clearly doesn't mean no restrictions or criteria. There needs to be restrictions and criteria, but because there's advantages to this and there are other neighbors, but that doesn't, but what is the right mix? So
Exactly, and so like right now, I have a grant in for a greenhouse. Well, I have to go get a permit for that greenhouse, but if if they try to give me a hard time about that, then I would file with New York State, because I would say that they were being unreasonable. So then obviously a greenhouse, it's gonna be a big greenhouse, it's gonna be 30 by 96. So they can't not grant me that permit. It's part of my bona fide agricultural operation, So that's kind of the thing, is maybe somebody doesn't wanna look at it. Is that fair to my operations?
So the town has a right to decline it, they just have to have a good reason to decline it. That's basically what it comes down to.
Yeah.
I'm part of the problem here, asking these questions. I'm sorry,
but
dragging this out, but I do want to keep going just through the list so we can talk about it after, because everyone over here is, I feel like you're being very patient. Thank you. And the next, I was going to go to Cornell Cooperative, then to our elected reps, and then to the other farmers and board members that are here as stakeholders. But if we can go to Cornell, Stephanie and Ruby.
Sure, and I'm just going to give a little bit of background. Precedes Ruby for our organization, and actually she is a staff member that does sit on the board as an ex officio. But hearing from Dutchess and Westchester, I will tell you that pre-COVID, one of the few agricultural initiatives that I tried to implement into Putnam County were certainly modeled after Dutchess County. And, Cornell Cooperative Extension, certainly our roots are in agriculture. And one of the things that we provide is nonpartisan education and technical assistance to everyone. And so one of the things that we did with EDC was we had a large agro-tourism conference in Putnam County. Again, to Mandy's point, is that farmers are not generally in Putnam County traditional farmers, and they need to diversify what they do in order to survive and make a living. And so what we did was really present best practices that work for agricultural amenities. And one of the other things that Jen Lerner, who also is a staff member, what we tried to do was talk about home rule and agricultural zoning. We invited legislators and municipal supervisors and other elected officials to come together, because that does seem to be where the disconnect is between the two sides. And not to say one side is right and one side is wrong, but let's put the issues on the table and see if we can come together as reasonable adults so everybody has a win-win. Farming is not going anywhere, no farms, no food, and that's a reality as it comes. But I'll turn it over to Ruby now.
Thank you. I just wanted to kind of make a few notes about farming in Putnam County. I think Stephanie touched on that. Our farms are going to look fairly different from Dutchess County farms and even Westchester farms. And I think being able to recognize that in how we approach them is really important and really vital to preserving and maintaining farmland and agriculture in Putnam County. A few notes I think that are really important is that for every $1 spent at farmers markets, an estimated 2.6 is generated in the local economy. So I think we're talking about farms, but we're also talking beyond just farms. We're talking about other small Putnam County residents, small local businesses that are really important. Our purpose is to make farming accessible to the residents of Putnam County, and their economic impact ripples truly across the county, and that's really important to recognize that we're not just talking about farms, we're talking about residents beyond that as well. We've also received over $1 million to spend at local farms to purchase food, eggs, milk, dairy, produce, to purchase that from local farms and distribute it all out to our food pantries and really address food security. And I wish we could spend more of that at Putnam County farms, but there is a reality that we just don't have enough of them to be able to spend more and more of that money at local farms, and I think that's really a disappointment. I would love to make a more resilient county, a more self-sufficient county, especially when it comes to food. We've all seen issues in supply chains impacting prices, impacting our local food supply, and being able to be a self-sufficient county, especially when it comes to food, is really, really important, and I think is becoming even more of an issue. So I'd love to be able to address that.
Thank you, Ruby. There's a lot of turning again, I'm sorry. So I am not going to do an hour-long presentation on the state of the county again. But for those who are interested, this is your book of annual reports for our departments. It's on our county website, putnamcountyny.gov. There's a QR code at the end, which gives you a link. So it's all digital to this one, which is all our outside agencies right here. And Stephanie, correct me if I'm wrong, because this is on last year's numbers, so the numbers are not the exact same. But this is what we get to share with taxpayers where your money is going. And Cornell Cooperative, as one of our outside agencies, gets a significant amount of county funding, which helps leverage them get additional state funding for their operations. For 2024, the county's contribution funding was a little over $362,000. I think for 25, it's probably a little over 370.
Yes, in that neighborhood, yes.
Sure. I know some people tell me it's never enough, but that's your job. But I think it's a couple things that I find interesting. You highlighted purchased 219,401 pounds of locally grown produce from farmers from four food pantry programs, including the Farm to Truck food truck, which offered free produce, eggs, meat, bread to residents throughout the county. Brought up 4-H members to the first ever agricultural leadership conference in Albany. Approximately 16,000 people were served by a food truck I mentioned. Provided 8 farmers technical assistance, aided 60 new and existing farmers and workshops in agroforestry, small fruits, and beginner sheep and goats. So, see, you didn't know I was going to read this, and now you're like, man, I hope I didn't have a typo.
I apologize in advance.
Introduced 16 adult gardeners and 8 young gardeners in Putnam Valley to low-cost vegetable gardening through the Seed to Supper program, seedling programs, addressing food insecurity, water quality, and lots of exciting goals that they're going to try to accomplish that we're excited about. When I was in the assembly, we helped secure some state funding to try to help them with their capital plan, because they're trying to have a permanent, right now they have a lease with us for our county building, the current building, which is upstairs from the county DMV next to the health department. We're trying to put them on Tilly Foster Farm, which I very much present as a Putnam County park. I don't want it to be competition with our farmers, but what better place than to be part of an educational institution for Cornell Cooperative to call home. I just share that because all those things, You don't need to, that's doing good work for agriculture and the future of farming in Putnam County and Hudson Valley, but you don't have to be in the ag district to benefit from that, correct? They don't have to buy for people, okay? And you don't have to have an exemption or discount to benefit from that. But that is some of the things that the county budget is funding through Cornell. And I just think people should know. It's really good work, so.
Thank you.
Not to put your report on display.
That's okay.
But now you know that when you give it to me, it's,
No, I appreciate that you read it, and we're proud to be here in Putnam County. We're proud of the organization that we have, and thank you for supporting us.
And the money we give leverages getting more
Correct.
state money, which will go to.
And federal.
Yeah, and federal.
Just wanted to add, I was at the Carmel Friendship Center 2 weeks ago, when the food truck pulled up, the seniors loved it, so.
Good.
You also have the freezer program in there, which is at Butterfield, our Friendship Senior Center in Cold Spring. You've expanded it. It's in your report. I'm not going to go read the whole thing again, but where it helps combat food insecurity. It's not just the food itself, but then getting it into the hands of people that need it. There's other outside agencies we work with too, but Cornell is inherently tied to the county and our mission. So it's not unique. A lot of counties, it's the same thing, but it's an important partnership. So that I'm going to go to our elected reps who are here, and then we're going to go to our other farmers who are here at the table. Jackie is our host, and then we have staff representing Senator Rollison, Senator Harcum, and Assemblyman Slater. So,
Hi, everyone. Very interesting what I learned in Westchester Duchess. Great thing to follow. That navigator thing, I think we should do that. My reason that I was even involved in this is because in Putnam Valley, we had farmers who were denied getting into the ag district. They weren't denied by the town. Town supports them. We want them to move forward. Some of them are still here. They know we want them to move forward. We understand the benefit of them being on the county ag district. You know, having that ag zone code for the town, I'm not sure if it'll make a difference whether they're in that district. But there are some misconceptions, misunderstandings that I think has to take place within the county to clear up some misunderstandings from when this resolution was first put in place in 2003. I don't think it's done intentionally. I think it's business as usual, and they didn't understand that shall and must, because the resolution from 2003 say these regulations or these procedures shall, but then in 2007 they moved the word shall to must, but it still starts off with the word shall follow these procedures, and then those procedures do say must. That is something that has to be cleared up within the legislators. I think the Ag Board's doing the best they can, and I just want to move forward so our towns can do what's best for our residents. I mean, tourism is great. I mean, having these horse farms, having a tree farm, having a pumpkin farm, these are all great for us. I don't understand why anybody would want to stop it. I do understand why people would. But, as you said, we want to be a self-sustaining county. We can only do that if we help each other. So I'm really grateful for this. This is a great first step for putting everyone on the same page of what we need here as a county. Following some of the stuff that Dutchess County does, following some of the stuff that Westchester County does. Having New York State Farm Board here is great. I think this is a great step, so thank you for having this done here. I really hope that we can continue moving forward on this positive note to get our farmers what they need. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jackie. And I have great memories of this is I don't only think it's an ag district issue or ag board issue, but I have great memories of going to Nisi's farm, and it's sad to see a maple farm in Putnam Valley where I would go and actually moved to where's our Westchester? Dave Marcos Crespo, who is in the majority. He was the labor committee chair in the assembly. He was representing the Bronx. He's now living in Yorktown, but because I knew he liked maple syrup, I brought him up to Albany. I brought him a bottle of maple syrup from Nisi's farm on the maple syrup week. And, it's Nisi's not even there anymore. So it's sad.
I don't think it was more of they aged out. I know Glenn still does it as a hobby. We do miss Nisi's farm. He had Bert and Ernie, they were their goats. They had a beehive, yeah. I actually tapped the tree. It was actually pretty awesome. He showed me how to make maple syrup, which is really cool. It was a great experience with DC's Farm, and it is sad that we don't have something more like that. But let's hope that we can get another one that can do this. And we can only do that with the help of our legislators to all agree on something, to agree on moving forward, and that's what we have to do.
Well, like I say too, like policies and laws, they're permanent, you gotta follow them until you get new folks who can put in new laws or change laws. So those are things that, you know, we take into consideration as we wanna look at to what we can do moving forward to the future. Thank you, Jackie. Well, as long as go down the road to our state reps, so you've all been very patient. Thank you.
No, it's been a great conversation. Again, my name is Kira, representing Assemblyman Matt Slater, and I know we've had a lot of discussions with local representatives, state representatives as well, and also other partners as well as the Farm Bureau. I know we work with Cornell as well. Matt is a big advocate on food insecurity, and we've had some roundtables in the past talking about how we can further connect. So I think it's great the work that you guys are doing to taking that local fresh food and giving it to those who need it. You know, we're here just to continue to have these conversations. You know, there is the importance of local control that Matt does believe in. I know these are more local issues of kind of what we're talking about, but the state does play a role in a lot of them too. So we're here just to listen. And I will say too, I met with Town Supervisor, Fall Farm Weekend was one of the weekends we look forward to. In Yorktown, I know they're having Maple Fest this weekend with Yorktown Grange, White Oak Farm. So, you know, that continuation of kind of the tourism part and just getting people to our local farms and hoping to continue those connections is really great. But, you know, I will report back with all the great conversations we had today. Again, look forward to continuing these conversations. Thank you.
And I'm Catherine from Senator Rollison's office. I want to thank County Executive Byrne for having this conversation. It sounds like it's been a very productive conversation, bringing all these key stakeholders to the table. As Mandy said, and as Jennifer and Greg and myself, a fifth-generation farmer from Dutchess County, you know, seeing as our farm has transitioned from doing beef cattle to dairy to now doing horses and baling hay, we've had to change over time to meet those demands and meet those needs. And I think you brought up a really good point of you know, how we kind of have to adapt to that. Just kind of reading this chart as far as like the 7 acres and kind of tapping on what Jennifer said as far as like the gross income of meeting the 10,000 in the first 1 to 2 years, 50,000, you know, in subsequent years. You know, this has been in play for many, many years. And Putnam County is not immune to that, you know, your geographical area, but, you know, we have the metropolitan in Westchester County and Dutchess. But, you know, as Kira shared, I'm going to bring these concerns to Senator Rollison, share, you know, where the work that's being done, and I think this was a great start. So thank you for having me.
So again, I'm David Zeiger from State Senator Harkin's office. He represents northern Westchester as well as 4 towns in Putnam, Southeast, Patterson, Carmel, and Kent. So it's a lot of the areas that we've been talking about. And he also is the chair of the Environmental Conservation Committee in the New York State Senate. So both locally and at the state level, these are a lot of issues that he's working on, and we'd be glad to, you know, try to be a partner both locally and at the state level.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
We're going to go to our farmers on the board, but I just to add one more thing, because you reminded me, Kira, and I kind of led into a Maple Week. I know a lot of folks maybe wanted to do this earlier. I would have liked to have done this earlier. There are some challenges with, you know, different litigation the county faces, but it's important to do it. And I thought, what better time than Ag Week, which we are literally in. So I thought this was actually it was actually very appropriate timing. And on that note, let's pass this down to.
One thing I would like to call out is our department also owns the county buses. Tomorrow we are through with tourism, sponsoring a free shuttle using the trolley in Cold Spring to the Maple Festival at Little Stony Point. If anyone's interested in going.
Sunday. I guess I gotta go now. Okay. So let's pass this. You might just pass this down to our. Thank you for your patience.
My name is Christina Stassi. I have a horse farm in Brewster and I'm on the ag board. Please jump in for anything that I get wrong. Urban has the most experience, and even though he's here representing Farm Bureau, he has way more knowledge about this. So I'd like to first start with how you get into Ag District. You submit an application in the month of April. We review the applications. We do farm visits in May, and we have a meeting and we decide which ones we're going to recommend. Then it goes to physical services. Then I will recommend.
So for anyone else that follows this, the physical services, the legislative committee. So I know you know that, but other folks may not.
So our recommendations go to physical services, and then they vote on whether or not to accept our recommendations. Are they allowed to pull out farms that we have recommended?
They can decline.
That's what I mean. So if we recommend 5 farms, they can say, no, we only think 4 of these should go forward?
The board is just an advisory board of the legislature. The legislature is all the power. The board does nothing but make recommendations.
So after it goes to physical services and they decide who they want to put forward for recommendation, then it goes to the legislature to recommend, to approve whether or not those farms get approved.
And then it goes to the state head of Ag and Markets, who then has 120 days for the whole period to approve.
So there is a time period from when the Ag board puts their recommendations forward to when it has to be received at the
30 days.
Ag and Market.
No, it's not like Westchester.
I was going to ask, in your experience, have you had a similar experience where you've been a little late?
Yeah, because sometimes the meeting's on the last day of the month. And
okay.
So in your invitation email, it said that the website had been redesigned to reflect the priorities. The County Resolution 139 was taken down. The Resolution 139 allows farmers to read through it before they fill out the application to see if they are eligible. So that was one thing I noticed on that. There's no link to the ag plan, even though the ag plan is from 2004, and we talked the last 2 years about updating it, there was still no link on the website to the ag plan, which, as I said, needs to be updated.
I think the board, when I was on it, voted to redo it, right?
Yes, and I believe, Barb, weren't you gonna take the lead on that, or am I mistaken?
So it's one of the things, I think, what was the last time the farm plan was updated? We've already.
2004.
Yeah, so it was an acknowledgement. It's something that within the administration is looking to try to fund it. It's something that we're going to see if it's something we can possibly revisit doing still. And it's only being reinforced by the discussions that we've had here today. But yes, we can, as far as the other information you think is missing on the website, that's a good search.
I believe there's a grant for that too, so.
Yeah, it has not been announced yet by New York State Ag and Markets, but they will be having a grant program this year.
It was the county to put a portion and they matched.
It's a 50-50,
yes.
yeah.
I know it was something we tried to do a year or so ago, something that we're still looking into right now.
So we have 2 vacancies, and we have had 4 interested farmers apply for those vacancies. Nothing's been done. April is in a couple weeks. Farmers are supposed to be putting in applications. I know that at least one farmer has told me that they called to find out about the application process, and they were told, don't bother applying, you're not going to get in. We're not happy about that. We have been denied bylaws. There is a memorandum dated 11/14/22 from Tony, thank you, Adonisio. And it's just a reminder that it's the responsibility of each board to keep track of the term of office of its members, and each board, agricultural board, should confirm that it has provided the clerk of the legislature with a copy of its current bylaws. I joined only a few years ago, and that was one of the first things I asked for so I could know what the procedure is. I've never been on any kind of board that didn't have some kind of rules and regulations. So that's one of the things that has been bothering me. The other thing too is when we had some, when I came on the board, there was another vacancy that was also filled. And then we got a chart telling us when our term would be over. It says in 302 of the state code, after the board has been established, the chairperson of the legislative body shall appoint 2 qualified persons for a term of 2 years, 2 qualified persons for 3, 2 for 4. Thereafter, the appointment of each member shall be for 4 years. But when we got the chart, it didn't follow that rule.
So I can actually explain that.
Okay.
The board had been reappointed in several years, so we were starting from scratch.
Okay, but
I can go even further because it's one of many boards that, as the executive when I came in, there's some boards that I have the ability by our county charter to appoint. So for example, the Board of Ethics, the Emergency Service Safety Advisory Board, but many of the boards are actually appointed by the legislature. Commonly, they take recommendations from whatever's in the board before, but this is one that comes from the legislature. But when I took office, I noticed a lot of boards just in general were operating under expired terms. The Board of Ethics was a very obvious one, but the way the charter was written was they would continue their term until a successor was appointed, which kind of allows like a status quo to go on, which to me is not a best practice. So even if you can do it, you should have active terms. But this is the ad board.
We consulted with council and they recommended just reestablishing the board with the fixed timeframes.
But I don't understand that because it's in section 302 of the Ags and Markets, and it tells you how it's supposed to be. So it's not like
I think they stagger them. They stagger them so that you don't have all the
But
same
that's only
reappointments
the
every year.
first board. Correct.
But what they're saying is they restart it.
Yeah, everybody.
Okay. I'm not gonna discuss it further, but I don't believe it follows the intent of it. And it's the responsibility of each board to keep track. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is in County Resolution 139, as you were saying, I believe it was you, that Jackie.
139, you have to be very clear, because Resolution 139 doesn't really exist. It's either from 2003 or from 2007, so make yourself clear which one you're referring to.
Yeah, so the resolution exists. I don't want to say it doesn't exist, but
It's very hard to find on the website, by the way.
I have it here.
It's
Because
extremely, I found it, but I spent a lot of time digging for it.
Look at the years.
Right, but it's still Resolution 139.
But it's
Yeah,
when
but
we
there's
say,
change.
so it's every government that does resolutions, just to kind of like, sorry to like, I apologize if this comes off like I'm trying to educate folks, but the county government, state government, town government, it's different because the executive is part of their board. In county government, we have a charter that governs us. It's like our governing document, like the Constitution, but for just the county government. We have a legislature, we have an executive, so we can pass changes to the charter, which is a law. The legislature has to change the charter with, I believe it's a 2/3 vote, 6 votes, 6 of the 9, and then I have to sign it or veto it, or they can override it. They can pass changes to the county code. It's similar, but it's just a majority vote. But many times they pass what is referred to as a resolution, which has the force of law. They can pass resolutions to enact, enabling legislation that the state gives us, which ag district, tax exemption, things like that. So, but the resolution gets a number each year, because in Putnam, which is unique, we have staggered terms for the county legislature as well, which is interesting. Every year, 3 of them are up. There's 9 of them. But every year, it's like a new session of the legislature. And in January, they start renumbering the resolutions. So it's like in January, resolution number 1 is appointing X. Resolution number 2 is X. And then we get through the county budget. That's another resolution that I then have to sign or veto. But it changes every year. So when you say 139, to Supervisor Nabi's point, it's from 2007, which is, if it has not changed, it's still in effect. But it's not anything that I can touch or change because I wasn't the executive then.
Right, I'm not saying.
Okay, good. I just wanted,
I
for
understand that.
everybody, because I know there was some, I think there's some confusion on that, so I'm
So-
sorry if I
But
derailed you there.
as you said, it needs to be clarified so that farmers that do qualify can get in. And I'm mostly concerned is that we haven't been allowed to have a meeting since
September.
Thank you, September. And we have, the Ag Board farmers, we don't know who has applied or who wants to apply. I know that Irvin in the past has helped guide farmers. He helped me when I first moved up here from Long Island. He helped guide me in the application. I did it wrong the first time. Nobody helped me. So I was denied the first year because I filled it out incorrectly. I had to wait another year. And finally, he was like, yeah, this is what you need to put here and you need to put there. So April's going to be here in 2 weeks, or less than 2 weeks. And we're supposed to be receiving applications, but we haven't had a meeting. So I'm concerned about that. Yes,
Can I just touch on this for a second? So we're only required to meet twice a year. Our board has traditionally met many more times than other boards do, and we're an advisory board really for this process. So, and you can speak to this too, we do traditionally much more than other
You got some
boards.
other counties here, I
Yeah.
don't know what other counties.
So when I was chair for years, since 10 years, close to it, right, of the Ag and Farmland Protection Board, our main goal was that process. So we would meet 2 or 3 times, and then there was many months that we didn't meet, unless there was some business that had to come before us, and
Land conservancy.
Land conservancy issue that, we have a very active, we have a partnership for manageable growth. We throw $1 million in as a county to buy purchase development rights or help leverage that money. So when the Land Conservancy would come to us and say, hey, we need you to approve some projects, then we would meet. But it was on a basically case, there was never, unlike every other board I was a part of, there was no set meeting dates. We didn't meet the second Tuesday of every month, per se. We met when there was something to do.
I understand that we're only required, I'm sorry.
We meet the third Tuesday of every month, the county's Ag Board. If you read the Ag and Markets law, yes, the primary role of an Agriculture and Farmland Protection Board is to administer the agricultural district, which is an annual process, and that role is really a 2 to 3 months, each year. But it's also, the Ag Board has a role of advising the Board of Legislators, about agricultural issues. I would like to think that the Ag Board can determine what that might be. Our Ag Board has traditionally had maybe every year, every other year, workshops for farmers and things like that. So they have other reasons to meet on a more regular basis, more frequent basis, and just continue conversations about agriculture. As urban agriculture has become more a bigger issue in the county, we've started to have conversations with groups from community gardens down county and other urban agriculture advocates.
And we would like to do that, but every time we've said, well, let's do this, we've been told, no, you can't do that.
So one of the things that when I became, so I'm unique because I was a farmer on the legislature, so the only one. So I represented a different group sometimes. But what Marcus, Marcus created the Ag Advisory Board, his own Ag Advisory Board. Now, some of those people were served on the Ag and Farmland Protection Board, like myself, and also served on his Ag Advisory Board. So we have now dissolved, and not, Sue Serino is very pro-ag, very, very pro-ag, but we wanted to give something more for the Ag and Farmland Protection Board to do. So we kind of morphed the Ag Advisory Board to the county executive back into the Ag and Farmland Protection Board to do exactly what we're doing.
So do we have an advisory board?
Yeah, they were 2 separate entities originally.
choose to do that.
But we had, and what we did, because I was also on the Cornell board, because I was so it was spreading a lot of the farmers, because we have a problem, we have the same issue of getting the farmer members to do. So I'm sitting on the Ag and Farmland Protection Board, I'm sitting on the Ag Advisory Board, I'm the chairman of the legislature, I'm on the Soil and Water Conservation District, I'm on the Cornell Cooperative Board. I loved it, but it creates a singular voice. And we wanted to divest that voice amongst a larger group of people, because it's not fair that Greg Pulver, who is also a good friend of the county exec, who's also the chair of the legislature, gets to do all this. It's not fair. I mean, I didn't want that power, but I had, just by the nature of being a farmer, I had all these interests. So we were trying to make it, the Ag and Farmland Protection Board, more meaningful, to do other things. So that's why we kind of morphed out of the Ag Advisory Board. They were two separated, but some members overlapped.
So just from a standpoint of Putnam County, we typically met 10 months of the year, but we did do other things. We hosted multiple events over the course of the year, including a farm tour. Lori Taylor was the head of Soil and Water at the time, and Lori was pro farming. So we went and did a lot of farm events. We did Keep Putnam Farming with Glenwood, which was a huge undertaking. And so for that alone, we had to meet almost every month. And so we did have things over the course of the year that we worked on, aside from the 2 to 3 months that we had to meet.
But even more than that, we've been told, no, you can't educate the towns.
Well, I will say this, from conversations that I've had with folks in the farming sphere within Putnam County, and folks from outside of Putnam County about ag district issues, I do think sometimes the language and vernacular we use when we say education, and then sometimes, perhaps unintentionally, that morphs into a form of advocacy. Those are two different things. And I think sometimes folks who may be well-intentioned struggle with those definitions, and that can be a challenge. Now, I was unaware of county executive, former congressman, now FTA administrator, or whatever he's doing now.
He's followed my footpath.
Yeah.
I was a comptroller last year for one, and now the assistant county executive, so we have different jobs.
It's good. But Mark Molinaro, so Dutchess County Executive has different powers than the Putnam County Executive. Each county is a little bit different. We have a very strong legislative branch of government the way our charter is written. But the county executive, as does, I believe, the chair of the legislature, does have the ability to create committees. But those committees really only have the power to advise the executive. It's not like you're going to vote and have a board and have the power to unilaterally act. So, for example, I've done this already. We did this to get community groups to update recommendations for the county's mission statement and purpose. We've done this to review employee health insurance contributions so they can help give me researched recommendations. So it's not just Kevin Byrne, coming up with this idea in a bubble with my office, but I'm bringing in stakeholders and getting buy-in. So when I hopefully give a recommendation to the legislature, I'll get more receptive feedback. Not unlike having a roundtable. We get receptive feedback, help shape it into recommendations, and hopefully can share it with the legislature and get some better reception. It doesn't always work, but that wasn't something I thought about. If it makes it more clearly defined to have like an executive ag advisory, no one's asked me to do that, but separate the two. I hate to say like, let's create another committee, because I feel like government has plenty. But if that helps clearly define things, it could be something that we consider. I hadn't thought about it before.
Urban knows more about this than me. So we sent a bunch of recommendations to physical services, and what did they do, Urban, this year? Yeah. Did they put them forward to the ledge and the ledge knocked them down, or did they just say, no, we don't want to recommend it?
I actually stepped down from the board at that point in time. I don't know exactly how long. I know they were all turned down ultimately by the ledge.
Right, so never before had that happened. Excuse me?
So
There was
Barbara can speak.
There were full the votes for each farm, all of the parcels were presented to the legislature. So So they received what we recommended, including a breakdown of the description of the history of each farm and the votes, how many for and how many against.
She's asking, was it denied in physical services, or was
Thank
it
you.
denied in the full legislative meeting?
So
That's what she wants to know, if it was past physical services.
Or did
Yeah.
not go on, or did not go on the agenda?
it went on the agenda, it was discussed. Physical services subcommittees only make recommendations to the full legislature, and then they
But
vote.
did they recommend what we recommended? Do you remember?
No. That was based off of.
Point being also is that when they went from us to physical services, there was a whole bunch of other stuff that was considered, although that had not been considered before, is that correct?
It was mentioned at a meeting for a few minutes, and then it was brought to the county ledge without anybody's approval.
Well, I will say this too, it is an important distinction. Like, I'm not trying to diminish any of the work. The Ag Board is volunteer, it's important. But members of the legislature are not appointed, they are elected by the people in their districts. So ultimately, that is why decision-making power is given to them and then me. So when they do these resolutions, it goes to me, but then I have an A or B answer. I can either sign it or veto it. That's it. I can't initiate it.
I understand they're elected and that's what their job is, but I feel that this year specifically, the 24, is that the legislatures were, that the Ag Board was not properly represented as to why we approved them. And then therefore, the legislatures only by whatever was in front of them said, no, we're not gonna do it.
I'm not a legislator, but I can
think
tell you,
was a split
public,
vote.
but, okay, it was a split
It
vote.
was a split vote, and actually, I can tell you that the four legislators, Legislator Russo was not on yet, but we did advocate for most of the farms, or at least more than half of the farms, and it was a very lengthy process. And there were many resolutions made and motions made to try to push this forward, and we did the best we could. But you have 9 people sitting, and it's going to be up to a vote.
What I'll say is so this is not a board meeting, this is a roundtable.
Yeah.
But when we have public meetings, we're governed by open meetings law, they're open public meetings, anyone can go.
And you can also see them, I don't believe they were live streamed last year, they were not live streamed last year, so you have to listen to SoundCloud, but you can listen to it, and you can hear it went on in Legislator Montgomery, Goldman are here too, and speak to them. It went on for more than just one meeting where we had this discussion, it was tabled, there was a lot of back and forth and discussion, and I understand what you're saying, and I have been advocating to hold a proper vote in speaking to the law department for April, because I know we have our meeting that we're gonna have to have, or fill vacancies. I understand all these things. And I wanna make sure that it's done in a parliamentary way, in a manner that is professional and just, and for the good of the people and for the good of the board.
What I can say too is, I wanted to share something with Commissioner Grosso, but we do our best to follow the rules and the laws. That is what I feel I'm obligated to do. But again, if we have the ability to update things moving forward, that's really what this conversation is about. That there's an opportunity to do that. I can't wave a magic wand and do it on my own, but there's opportunities to update resolutions, update laws, but it goes through a process, and it goes through the legislature, then it ultimately gets to me.
Can I just ask you a question?
Go ahead.
One of the things which I think might be a fair solution, or probably something to bring up as a discussion, as you amend this resolution, is, because one of these things is that they can't have, one of the things is the soil issue, which I think has to be rediscussed. But more importantly is the parcels have to be clear of violations. So if they say it has to be clear of violations 45 days prior to the application going in front of the Ag Board, is that even an option? So in other words, it can't be, and I do know like some of these were put in because we did have a parcel here in Putnam Valley that violated every one of these things. And I think everyone in here knows. But
It's clear now.
yeah, but I think, if there was a way to put in this resolution that a violation that property has to have a violation 45 days, a minimum of 45 days prior to the application being brought in. That way, if the application's in front of them, the violation can't be coming in at the same time the application's there, so no town, whether it's my town or any town, can put a violation on that property day of. And I believe that was some of the issues that Putnam Valley was trying to get them guilty of. And I'm wondering if that's been even something that the legislators and Ag Board might want to discuss with the commissioner, is having a time frame of when that violation came in place.
That's a good comment. I don't know
I
if
know
that.
you can't, but I think it might.
No,
be
it's,
one of-
look, and as I've done it before, given draft resolutions to help put live streaming in the county code, and, you know, sometimes it makes the cut, sometimes it doesn't.
Sometimes it does.
So, but that's democracy, right? That's how this works. People, we're all accountable to the people. What I would say is, I think, you know, I'm sorry if I kind of cut in with the discussion as we were going through. I said 12:20, it's 12:55. So we do have to wrap this up, at least for some perspective from me, based on everything I've heard. What I've been hearing, obviously, there's an opportunity to update our farming plan, which I think is necessary. There's an opportunity to update some of the criteria moving forward. We've talked about the website. I think there's some things that are missing on the website that we can entertain, trying to work with our IT department. There's still an outstanding question about will there be an ability to adjust the application period? I don't know if there's enough time to do that or not.
It would have needed to be adopted at the meeting the other night when I brought it up, and then it would have had to be put for a special before April 1st, because April 1st is in our resolution as our 30-day time period. So unfortunately now we have April 1st to April 30th.
Well, unless it
It could be, but it would have to be done by resolution before April 1st, and it had to be 30 days.
I don't know. I
I
don't
tried
think
to put forth the
extending,
resolution.
it's moving.
It's moving, yeah, it's
period.
moving. That was
I'm
my
saying
resolution
extend
the
it
other
just
night
one
was,
time.
yes, so I tried, and it,
The legislature has the ability whether they would do hold a special.
yeah, it would have had to pass through committee the other night, and we would have had to call a special to then codify it through the full ledge with a meeting, a majority, right? And before April 1st, which is now the adopted timeframe that we have, April 1st to the 30th.
Can they do special committees?
They can, but they wouldn't even let it get past a motion, so I don't.
If you don't have
see
another
what's gonna
meeting, how are you
happen.
gonna appoint all the new members? There's a shortage of members.
It is an
The
outstanding.
meeting is usually at the end of April, traditionally, so we would have the meeting, we would be able to do that, and if we had to call a special, we could, but we have to.
Yeah, 'cause if there's 5 applicants waiting to get on this board, I think it behooves the ag district to move forward and try and fill those vacancies.
So that,
Legally,
so my point is, look, we gotta highlight opportunities to move things forward and an opportunity to view the application period. There's an opportunity for the legislature to help appoint vacancies. There's an opportunity to identify funding for a farming plan. These are all things that are important for us to move forward. I really do gotta wrap this up, I apologize, but because I know the interest in the conversation has been very helpful to me. But just one thing I wanna share, I was provided this awesome quote that I like, that I forgot all about, I didn't share. Because I do consider myself a very much a limited government, local control advocate. He's not as popular as he once was, but I've always considered myself more of a Jeffersonian than Thomas Jefferson. But a Thomas Jefferson quote is, "Agriculture is our wisest pursuit because it will, in the end, contribute most to real wealth, good morals, and happiness." So that was a nice fitting quote to help wrap this up. Thank you for your time. I will try to talk to you guys offline.
No, I understand, I'm not.
I actually thought you were on here.
I'm not one of the knights of the round table, but So if it's okay, I had a couple of comments and I'll sit down and I can very short, just actually.
I can't open this whole thing up.
No.
You were literally invited.
Could we,
to come to the table.
Kevin, we
Okay, well.
understand you're busy and you have to go, but other people stay here to keep discussing.
This is my roundtable. This is a roundtable held by the executive office. I mean, I'm not gonna stop someone from talking to anyone. If they wanna talk individually to you, they're welcome to talk to you individually. It's America. Yeah. So I was hoping I could do that, but it's almost 1 o'clock. So.
Yeah, I'm not looking to take up a ton more time, simply to put out a couple aspects of the Putnam County itself. Putnam County and the soil issue that we are running into from the resolution from 2007. Putnam County has less than 25% prime farmland in it, but as a whole. And the prime farmland that we do have is being developed for economic purposes, which I am all for.
You talk about developers?
Brewster Subaru, Restaurant Depot, if you look up, and I have it, I will give it to you, I have the soil map. Those are all prime farmland soils. What is not being taken into consideration when it comes down to this soil situation is what's being done. Prime soil is for growing food.
And you're talking about soil composition.
Yeah.
Well, you're also talking about property rights issues. You're saying that people shouldn't be able to build on their own land.
No, I'm not.
That is.
No, what I'm trying to point out is that this is the resolution 139 from 2007 is restricting us.